Okay. My phone will start ringing now. Hello? No. That was a call from Petland from Iowa City. They were like, hey, do you want to make a reservation for any of our puppies? So I don't know. I think they're desperately trying to get rid of some puppies that they have. Anyway, I need to share this because while I'm waiting for my husband, who's very, very slow and apparently doesn't know what 8 o'clock means, I'll go ahead and share this because I don't know why he just didn't do all this beforehand.
Huh?
Nothing?
Well, I didn't do all this beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I forgot my book was downstairs, baby.
Mm-hmm. He sat on his chair, and I kept saying, "You gotta get ready, gotta get ready."
I don't know why. I thought it was 8:30.
And he continued to do
So
that.
first
Just
of
sit
all,
there, like he had all the time.
So we do have all the time in the world. We have all the time that God gives us.
That's coming. That's coming. That's coming. So, did you share it?
I think so.
Then I asked him to do that, and he didn't even do that. I don't know what he was doing on the phone, chilling.
Yes. I didn't.
That's where women have to do all the work.
Yes, y'all do. That's that. God made y'all our helpers.
I don't know why we need men.
Huh?
If that's the case.
To beat it up.
No, actually we don't.
No, yes you do.
That's what your hand is for.
No, you can't beat it up with your hand. We beat it up. Y'all just play with it.
Whatever. So anyway, we're still reading this book.
Yeah, I just got back to it.
Becoming Married and Staying Married. And of course he didn't read both chapters fully like he was supposed to. He said he didn't read all of chapter 5. He said, stop eating all the. How many of those have you eaten?
Probably the whole box.
Jermaine.
I eat like one a day.
You've been eating way more than one a day.
I have not.
Come here.
I'm sure I haven't.
You think it'd be okay if I took a root beer?
Yes, babe. Yes, you have been eating more than one
a
day. He didn't eat a whole box of these Reese cups, y'all.
And keto.
I don't care if they keto. It don't mean.
Baby, I've only eaten one.
I had one of these. There is only.
I told you I ate the whole box, but I've been eating one a day. Well, I did take 2 last night. It's not the point.
That's crazy.
You ain't say that was Zariah ate them.
Like there were literally like 8 of these in here. He didn't eat them all.
Yeah, so I ate one a day and I ate 2 last night.
Anyway. Okay, so we are here. So we've been reading this book. We haven't gotten very far.
We have
4 chapters, and we've gotten through 4 chapters, which is 43 pages, which is not a whole lot at all. In the amount of time that we've been reading this, I'm used to reading much faster, but
so she's calling me slow.
We have had some interruptions, I guess, if you want to call it. All right, where do you want to start at?
The chapter that we started on.
What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, the chapter.
What part of the chapter would you like to talk about first?
Well, first and foremost, this is for me, it's something that we discussed prior to even starting this chapter. And I mean, just to jump right in, it's talking about the history of of relationships and from the racism standpoint of how it affected us and how we interact with one another and our families. And I just thought the whole dynamic of that is interesting because, you know, as I become a better person, it's hard for me to, or it's sometimes it becomes hard for me to draw a parallel of how things back then can affect us now, especially if you wasn't the one that had to go through it. But you know, as those tendencies and things are passed, bad behaviors and thoughts are passed down, you know, through generations and generations, I understand that's how I could attribute out to our thoughts and certain processes that we go through. So, yeah.
Okay. What else?
What do you mean? What else?
What else?
I got so much stuff, Mark.
Okay, so start getting to your markups.
I don't want to get to markups. Ooh, boy.
So yeah, like he said, basically this chapter, it's just now the author briefly touches on this subject. I think there's a whole book that can be written.
I think, but really, he briefly touches on it, but he goes way more in detail than I think he would like to. It seemed like he wanted to go,
like he wanted to keep talking about
it.
Yeah,
even in it, it was like, well, that's a whole nother, story or whatever.
Right.
But he just breaks down. I mean, a lot of things that people we may not think about as African American men, behaviors of African American women as well. So, yeah.
So it's very interesting. So, but anyway, so again, like Jermaine was just saying, it kind of gives you this brief, I don't want to call it brief history on why African American relationships may be as they are currently today. And I think actually kind of hits on a lot, and it actually is relevant, and to me is very credible. I think is one thing in there that he pointed out while he was talking about the slavery, what Africans had to endure in slavery. So you have all these. It's already traumatic being taken away from your home, right, and being put into a life of servitude and working, laboring for another person that is treating you unfairly. But there's also added dimension on that, on how it tore away, kind of ripped apart the Black African families. And not only that, you have the separation of African families. You have the families that were brought over here as families, as husband and wife, but then once they got here, it was not recognized as husband and wife. And then he points out how you had to have these husbands that were seeing their wives potentially raped and beat, and all these things, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then you also have this issue with providing, and how the husbands couldn't even provide for their families because it was a slave owner that was
giving all the clothes, food, and all of that crap.
Right, and they were giving it to the women. So that right there is another interesting dynamic. How when he says they were giving that stuff to the women to give to the house. So now that even put a even deeper spin on it than what I had actually ever thought about. Because when you think about it, if you have the woman coming home and she's the one bringing the clothes and she's the one bringing the food and she's the one doing that, then that would even add additional layer to a man and how they feel is with regards to providing and the lack of the ability to provide.
And it's crazy because even when I read that, I was like she said, that puts a different tone to it, because this is what I want to say about that. I'm sorry. So when I heard that the system has been structured to take the Black male out of the home, I fully didn't grasp. I fully didn't grasp it and didn't know it was as deep as they were saying until I read that part. So it makes me understand more why it's said like that. You know what I mean? Because that's basically what it was. Anytime you demoralize a man, period, especially us as a culture coming from that, or make a man feel demoralized, it does something to his psyche, which he said that they were talking about even things like that in the book, as far as, the situation with Jade or whatever, whoever it was, about the guy in the construction worker.
Oh, the joy in the city. Yeah.
So you get to the point of when we're not able to provide, or we're not able to do what we're used to doing. It all of that stems back from those type of things. Because recently, I'm just, to be honest, to get a little bit personal, I went through a situation like that, and I don't think it was because I wasn't able to provide. I was more down the lines of like when he said, "When have I not been able to do?" Or when have I not, you know what I'm saying, not had. So that was bothering me more than the quote unquote not able to provide things, and it made me feel like less than, not you, but just that. It made me feel like, like less than, like I'm a man. I'm not supposed to be like this. Like I'm supposed to be able to take all of this and do this and do that and not be in this situation. So that was kind of personal for me as well.
And to think that that's some type of internalized inferiority complex that all stems from this whole issue with slavery and racism is very interesting.
And to the point of what I said earlier, when I didn't know that, it could stem from that, it's because that's what I wasn't a slave. My father wasn't a slave. I think my grandmother had somewhere in between there almost, but whatever, it still came down the lines because a man doesn't do this and a man doesn't do that and a man's supposed to be like this. So what that does is it in a marriage, it kind of grays the lines of, getting back like kind of on the subject a little bit, grays the lines of what a relationship supposed to be and or what am I trying to say? It don't grade the line, but it makes problems when it doesn't have to be problems.
Right.
So
that's true. And part of that is because we still don't understand how trauma is passed on from generation to generation. I don't know how. It's funny because I think there's so many people that still, I don't know if they consciously think about this, but I know like at least subconsciously, they don't really connect the dots. And they're saying like, even if they think about they're not connecting slavery to what's going on in present day. Or, okay, not everyone was slaves, but they're not even connecting the issue of racism to what goes on in relationships in their mindset and how they think about things today, because both are traumatic, right? Slavery and racism are both traumatic experiences that we on some level have had someone experience in our family. And because of that is the trauma from that experience has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And I don't think do enough to take the time to say, okay, this is what's happening. And this is potentially why it's happening. We haven't as a collective done any type of healing process to even begin to even deal with those experiences.
And a lot of that, so it mentions something also in there about our cultural behaviors. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I interpret this wrong, I may be adding a little bit to it. I am going to add a little bit to it. The cultural behaviors, and I've said this several times on my Facebook page, our culture is the biggest part of our problem. Yeah. Right? But the thing about when I say that, I mean the culture that we have made it.
The dysfunctional.
The dysfunctional aspect of it. Because again, if we go back to the slavery times, we were based in family. Family is what was the one thing that, like he said in the book, was the one hope that we had. Mm-hmm. Right? So we were based in that some kind of way, and I know kind of way now after reading that, but it got interrupted and it got curved and it got turned and we started looking at family as a negative and having negative behaviors and things like that, and that became the culture. Mm-hmm. And that's the culture that I attack and I address when I say our culture is the problem. And even when I just told you said something about when I was reading this chapter was really interesting to me. Remember I told you, and I would sound like a stupid when I say this. I told her just a couple of weeks ago, whatever movie it was we were watching.
Yeah, we were watching Blood and Water, the series.
So it actually, and I know I'm not the only one, and people probably can look at me and be like, yeah, you got to be the only one. But no, how they portrayed Africa, all from what I've seen all growing up was, and I'm not being disrespectful, I'm trying to be funny, but not really disrespectful, with flies and AIDS and kids. That's it, and they're hungry and starving. And that's the image that I had of Africa. It's only until recently for me that I've seen and it impacted me so much in my viewpoint on that I don't care what celebrity go over there and says Africa is beautiful and this, that. No, I seen it on TV. Mm-hmm. That those kids over there eating rats or whatever, got flies all around them. So, but then when I started watching these shows that's depicting a different image on TV, it's like, well, damn, they really do have civilization over there. So I said all of that to say that how Africa is depicted has a lot to do with how they want to make us feel like where we're from, like we're nobody, basically.
Right.
So,
and to Netflix and Prime Video credit, I do appreciate the fact that they're showing these African, not just African American series, but they're showing these African series that are set in Africa, like in different parts of Africa, Nigeria, wherever, and they have them speaking in their language and everything else, and that I appreciate. Like, that is awesome to me that they're doing that.
But yeah, it's and again, we just had this conversation a couple weeks ago before we even read that, and I have to listen because of her educational level and the things that she's done in her career and things like that. But this just drives it home for me that everything that we do goes back to what we was talking about last week as well. The history, he even mentions it in this, the history of how women were treated is instilled in that slavery time as well. Mm-hmm. So it even makes it work. Like, that's the system that people don't even, I don't know if I didn't, but people don't even understand how deep it goes, because that's a part of that system that they're talking about that's not meant for us, because the trauma that was enforced on women, it and then we turn around and give them that same trauma. So technically women may have had it worse than men coming out of slavery and going through life, because if they had to deal with the slave masters and being belittled that way, and then once you become free, mm-hmm. and then you try to get to the marriage or the relationship or the aspect of it, and then that black male, because probably I would guess that he's seen you treated like that, mm-hmm. And he figures that that's what you're used to. I don't want to say figures, but that's what you're used to.
I was just getting ready to say that.
And so it perpetuates the same cycle over and over. Mm-hmm. So one kid, I think it would be a safe assertion to say that women have, for the longest, been enslaved twice.
Right. Because you know what I was gonna say, you know how people just from present day, so I can imagine they were doing it back then. You know how people project and they try to rationalize things. So I don't know how many men actually did. This is again me just thinking, but I can imagine that some, to lessen the pain, had to rationalize what was happening in some kind of way, and had to project some kind of way on their wives or on the African American women that were getting raped, and especially the ones that were getting raped and impregnated, right? So some people, you know, people already think crazy anyway. Like, they'll say, you like, because you had an orgasm, you liked it, or something, or because you got pregnant, you couldn't have got pregnant unless you like, just weird stuff. So I can imagine people especially the men, trying to rationalize it in that way, so that it wouldn't be so devastating to them. Do you get what I'm saying? And then projecting that anger onto the woman so that it wouldn't, because they had to take it out on someone. Yourself feel better. But in the same token, I can see the women projected onto the men because the men couldn't protect them.
So what did I, now this is a little bit different than what you're saying. I don't know if you remember me saying this. One of the craziest things that hurt me the most is if you're hurting, mm-hmm. like with mom, mm-hmm. right? I could sit there and fight anybody. I could lay down my life for, and I'll lose my life to try to protect you, to keep you from hurting. But when you, with me as a man, I see you're hurting and there's nothing that I can do about it, that hurts me even more. It makes me feel like I'm nothing, because I can't
right
physically, literally protect you and stop that pain. Mm-hmm. So I can imagine putting myself in a situation, or not putting myself in a situation, or being in a situation of, you're my wife and this man has you here and doing all of these things, and I can't do nothing about it. right? But then I'll go back to this, going completely off subject. Go back to what Kanye West said too, when he said slavery was a choice. I guess we could have took that choice of dying right then, right? Versus that, but that's a whole nother subject for another day. But yeah, that's it's, and all of those things have shaped our minds. He said that too in the book about how women have started perceiving themselves and through the music and TV shows and all of that. I never thought that was true either, but
I mean, think about it. So then you have this history of people of a society, and we already know who we're talking about, that have perpetuated those images and negative images, because of course you want to continue to have that rift in between, the black man and the black woman. Why would you not want that rift to continue? Because you can't possibly have all of them joining forces together and being in harmony. That would do too much damage. So of course you continue to perpetuate that issue. And so then I think about the fact that, so literally you have these people who have multi-generational, deep-seated, deep-rooted issues with one another, the man and the female, black man and female, that are now in present day trying to have relationships with each other.
Yeah.
How does that work? Because and then we wonder why there are so many challenges with it.
But I think how you overcome these type of challenges is one, you have to get to the understanding of what's going on. Two, you have to be willing to listen and to get to the understanding, right? But how you get through that, break that chain and break that cycle, again, it has to be the understanding of what's going on, because if you understand what's going on, you're going to be able to communicate in a different way. You're going to be able to try to understand and get other people's perspective in a different way. And I mean, again, I'm not sitting there saying that because, grandmama got raped and beat and tortured and all of that somebody's supposed to be like, oh, well, you know what? Your grandmama got raped, and that's why you acting like that. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just we have to understand the damage that's been done to us.
Yeah, before we can begin to heal, because he even talks in there. He says what seems to be our struggle is understanding the perception of who we are and ultimately who we are supposed to be within our marriages and relationships. If we have not come to a place where we are comfortable with ourselves, then how can we believe that we can be comfortable with someone in a marriage partnership? And that's significant because, again, we're bringing so much baggage into these relationships from the multi-generational traumas. So, and let's be clear. When you think about slavery, when you think about racism, when you think about the trauma that the African American community has suffered, you got to also consider how it impacted the generations before you, right? So you can have generations that are far removed from, for example, slavery, but somebody's uncle molested them, or somebody's, dad beat them, or somebody's mom did this and that. And that's also impacting us. So we have this stuff that's coming over from slavery. Then we're piling trauma. That's what I'm trying to say. We're piling trauma on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma. So then you have not only these issues that are a result of slavery and racism, but I also got this issue of my daddy and mama always fighting when I was younger. And I always got this issue of my uncle or my cousin touched me inappropriately when I was younger. And I also got this issue of the teacher, singled me out because I was black when I was in school, and now I don't like school anymore. And I also got the issue of I've been dogged in past relationships, and I also got this issue. So you see what I'm saying? So we got all this trauma that has basically been piled upon each other, like just pile, and none of it has been talked through. None of it has been dealt with appropriately. None of it has been, like I mentioned before, like recycled and then thrown out. None of it. It's just all still there, and then we're trying to be in relationships with each other. With all of that.
I'm going to say some crazy stuff. Forget reparations. you want to help us? You give us lifetime counseling to handle that. I think that would be more important than money.
Yeah.
Because that's going to bond and it's going to make families bond and stay together more and understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The money will come.
Mm-hmm.
The money will come because if you can get on one accord anyway and go in the same direction, you're going to become more powerful.
Yep.
And then the money will come.
Yep.
So, but then I also want to hint on it earlier, like this right here. It's just crazy. Like the with all of that,
mm-hmm.
They mixed in that we're lazy people.
Oh
that we're what do you say? What else? I'll try to remember it. Yeah, unproductive and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what he was doing to me was painting a picture of these stereotypes came about because of slavery and how they put that in our heads. And then we just kept on through generations and generations and generations. And what I don't understand is how could we even allow them to make us try to believe that we're lazy when this country was built on our forefathers' backs? How are we lazy? So for them to say that, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. It's just that chapter was kind of touching. I almost cried too.
Yeah, but look, when you think about it, it's easy to make somebody believe that if you already got a bad taste in your mouth about somebody, right? So again, if you connect everything together, if what I'm saying is true about how, of course, women may have started projecting on men because it's like, you're not protecting me, you're not doing this, then it's easier to lay some other type of attribute or negative characteristic onto them, right? Because we may even be justifying you just lazy, and that's why you can't do this in this situation or help me in this situation. So that's easy for us to believe once we have in our mind, once we've tried to even rationalize in our mind what's happening to us and why it's happening to us, and again projecting that on the people close to us, because we do that right now today, project on the people closer to us, do we not?
Absolutely, 100%.
That's how the people closer to us.
I had something I wanted to say. I forgot.
And so, about your point though, with the Joanne and Sydney thing, the reason why that was so right on point to me is not only because I looked at Boyce Watkins' video that he was doing on Tyler Perry, and I didn't get a chance to watch it the rest of the way. But I do want to watch it because he was hitting on some good things. And it put me in the mind of that, because in this book, he talks about how the woman's, her idea of stability is when a man has an education, right? And so to her, if you don't have education, or if you're not college educated, you're not going to be as stable. And that she needs that comfortability knowing that they're going to be financially stable, right? And it goes right along with what Boyce Watkins was saying when he was saying, look how we took, this is what's going to be interesting. Look how we maybe took a concept of how women think about financial stability and turned that into she's a gold digger.
Yeah.
Right? Look how we took that concept, because Boyce Watkins was talking about how when some women, when they say they don't want to date a man that makes a certain amount of money, some of that is because, and I'm not saying all of it. Yeah, of course, you have them people out there that are actually for real gold diggers. But some of it is because it reflects whether or not that person it reflects like a characteristic of that person. Because for the most part, if you work really hard in life, and if you accomplish certain things in life, you're not going to be at a point where you're just making minimum wage, unless something drastic can happen when you lose your job and everything. And we're not talking about them situations, but we're talking about situations where somebody has always been in that position where they just made minimum wage and they ain't made nothing else. That is a reflection for sometimes on your motivation level. That's a reflection on your productivity. That's a reflection on some other things, whether or not you organize well. And he was saying that some women actually understand that. And so to them, if a guy is only making $20,000 a year, you should be like, yeah, this is what I'm normally making. This is what I've been making all these years. To them, it's a reflection of what type of effort you put into life.
So, but even you said so right. So even with the women that are natural gold diggers, what the heck was that?
It's my phone.
Oh,
Mhm.
even women that are natural gold diggers. When I say natural, you know,
They really are gold diggers.
Yeah.
They're really looking for
but with that being said, I now
Mhm.
I now put all of that back to what we was originally talking
Mhm.
about, and the
Stereotypes
reason
and
why
images.
because it's little things that's put in there. It's little
Mhm.
things that's put in there to make it go this way or make it go that way. But either way is still not a good way.
Can you get what? Yes.
Either way is still not a good way because
Mhm.
even like with what you said now, right? You can look at a woman and say, "Oh yeah, she's a gold digger because she don't want to deal with a man that makes da 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 da."
Mhm.
Not the case, right? But you look at you look how they take the word gold digger, and it's going to work in both aspects,
Mhm.
and they're both negative. So a woman that has really went down, if you want to call it the wrong path, and
Mhm.
or whatever, and that's all she want a man for is money, it still has got perverted somewhere down the lines
Mhm.
to make her think
Yep.
think that her body equals money, to
Mhm.
make like, so it's just freaking crazy. And I would have never thought this, man. I would have never thought about this.
Yeah.
Now to the marriage aspect, right? I'm talking about our marriage now.
Mhm.
This is why I love my wife, because it's not a woman that I've met, that I've dealt with, and even my ex-wife, as smart as she was, that has made me think about these things. That has made me actually, I don't like. I'm enjoying reading the book because it's like, okay, she's told me this. I've heard certain things over life, but I had no interest in it. And from the look, got my wedding ring on. I don't even wear wedding rings. I had this thing
Mhm.
on for 2 days. She didn't even notice that.
I did too.
But whatever. But it's that part that gives us a connection that's, I don't want to say fighting because we don't have that type of marriage, but that lets me know if it ever comes to it is worth fighting for, because those things are irreplaceable for me. Personal. I had somebody I read on somebody post, they said, is marriage necessary? It's definitely necessary,
Mhm.
for a host of reasons. And one, then I read that yesterday. For me, let's just not even, we'll take God out of it. That's the number one reason, okay? But we're just gonna take God out of it. But for me, it's necessary because of the stability mentally that she gives me, the encouragement that she gives me, the will that she gives me to want to be better for her. It's necessary to break, try to break that cycle that everything that we just said,
Mhm.
because if it takes, it takes one couple that make and motivate another couple,
Mhm.
and we may not reach nothing but one couple, and then another couple may not reach nothing but one couple, and that one couple that they meet may reach three couples.
Mhm.
And it starts a whole nother, it perpetuates a whole nother cycle of positivity about relationships and marriages and how things go,
Mhm.
can potentially goes. Because, okay, let's talk about our culture. Our culture, we see all these rappers that and singers and stuff that got all of these luxurious things, right? And they're braggadocious about it. Well, if you can brag about that, why you can't brag about how good love is? Same
Right.
thing with God. You can brag about that, why you can't brag about how good God is?
Mhm.
And because if you brag about those things, then and it makes you want those things. If you could brag about how much you love somebody, how great marriage is,
Mhm.
and how great it can be,
Mhm.
and it should make somebody that really wants to be married, I would think, that wants to be married, like, okay, well, I understand that this has to happen or this will happen. We can get there, right? So I don't know. Oh, it's pretty cool.
It
Pretty
is,
interesting.
and I'm glad we actually decided to go through this book. It was a few that we were deciding upon, and we went with this one because Jermaine decided. But it was actually a good
You
choice.
want to know why? Wait a minute. The reason I went to this one because it was the less thick of the two.
Yeah, the thinnest one.
Yeah.
But in that, see, God had a plan for you. Is actually very, very I don't know what to call it. It's very enlightening. This book is, because it helps me to think about, like you said, when you think about
Informative as
our marriage, and I don't know if you can get more. Well, you probably can, but from the outside looking in, and even from Jermaine, when initially looking at us, it'd be like, okay, we are from two totally different worlds, right? He's from Venus, and I'm from Jupiter, because we just totally from two different worlds. But then,
Yeah, I'm from Earth.
Shut up. But then when you start thinking about things such as this, and when I take some of the things that we have discussed with this book, and then in other things that we talk all the time, but then it's easier for us to see a similarity, even though we were in two different worlds. There were some lines that are very similar, like some things that he went through that's similar to what I've dealt with. It may be in a different way, but you can still see the similarities, and how, okay, well, yeah, we both, even though we were in two different places and dealing with two different experiences and two different cultural backgrounds, there are certain aspects of that that is familiar. That's a common thread.
And it goes back to what he said earlier, that starting off reading. We're coming, like you said, from two different backgrounds, but when you come from two different backgrounds, there's different traumas that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, there's different traumas that someone's going to go through. So, and it's just putting that together.
Yep.
Understanding, trying to come up with an understanding of how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I am learning in being married, because I'm actually putting in an effort, that's the other thing too. You have to, that he mentioned in there, you have to, first of all, both of you guys got to want the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that early stage, what did he call it? When he was talking about the morning stages or whatever.
That's another chapter.
That's the other chapter?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, whatever. I told you I read something. But what happens is, those early stages of I guess we can go into that chapter. I'll just, I'll go back and forth anyway. But those early stages, you like, why in the heck? Oh, this person is the greatest person in the world. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Then all of a sudden, Zorana to Jermaine. So you just gonna leave your pants right there? They've been there for like 3 days. Jermaine, in Jermaine's mind, but it's on my side of the room. It's not bothering you. So then,
see, I wonder if you was thinking that sometimes.
Yeah,
I was thinking like, you may probably think,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
on this side, so
exactly. But so what happens is, and I told her this. I just told her today. I'm the type of guy, and I don't know. I ain't gonna say most men because I know a whole lot of neat freaks. But I'll throw something on the floor, and I'll leave it there for 3 days. And when I get tired of looking up, I'll pick it up. Right? That aggravates her and can aggravate somebody, just like it could aggravate me to like, why you keep bothering me about my pants? They not da 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 da. But what happens is those little things like that or things like that have to come up. You have to come up with some type of compromise,
mm-hmm.
some type of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it could be bigger things. I'm just giving an example. Like he has said something to the extent of things that you have to realize that you is thinking you're perfect all of this time or whatever the case is. And then when you get with somebody and y'all in that marriage, you realize, well, you may not have been as perfect as you thought, because whatever you're doing is annoying the other person.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's true.
So it's because a lot of things that I personally did that I don't understand why it would bother her. I mean, it's a good thing. Don't ask me to give you one, but it's been a couple things. And I'm like, that ain't that big of a deal. Which goes into, I don't know, that session that he said that they were having when I've never did that, but I was that type of person, and I've said that. I have done it. When he said they were having the counseling session, how did it go? He said, I don't know the people's name. We'll just stay with Joanne. So she started. He asked her, "Why is he sitting over there?" And he asked him. The pastor asked, "Why was he sitting over there?" And he said, "Because I don't know if she want me sitting next to her."
Oh yeah. And
then she rebutted or something and just bust out into crying. And this is what we do as men all the time. We'll turn around and like, yo, I said that to you. It's like it's really not that serious.
Mm-hmm.
And even before I read that, what I realized, because you said this to me, it is that serious if you're crying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. Isa said it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not that serious, you wouldn't be crying.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be that serious to me. Now this is me saying this. It may not be that serious to me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's serious enough that you're over there in tears.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it becomes, for me now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it becomes that serious for me because you're crying.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, what the heck is going on here?
Right.
Right. So I just think that have to try to get past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking that's kind
No,
of
no, that's fine. I understand.
crazy. That's all.
It is, and it is funny because we can go through, because he even mentioned that in his book too. Like we can go through rough patches and get through it, but unless we go back and realize that there's some changes that actually need to be made, then it doesn't resolve anything. Yeah, you can always get through a rough patch by just glossing over that it happened or just dealing with it until you get through it. But for example, in their situation, like the fact that he had lost his job, right? So maybe he'll get another job. And so they've gotten through that rough patch where she's not going to be complaining anymore. But that doesn't resolve the fact that she still feels like if he had an education, she'd be more stable. And it doesn't resolve the fact that he still feels like he doesn't like school and he doesn't want an education. You know what I'm saying? So
doesn't that sound like me though?
Yeah, so you still have that conflict there. And all that's going to happen is the next time something comes up, those two things are going to collide again. Yeah. And then you're back at the same part.
Well, I'm going to say this to you before I go into that, right? Because I saw something earlier. I want to commend you again for I didn't technically lose my job. I mean, you know everything that we've been through, of course. Mm-hmm. But I want to tell you thank you, and I've told you this before, and I continue to tell you thank you. I had a problem saying, hey, because it wasn't working for a while, whatever the case may be, and I had a problem, and I wonder how that intertwines with what we were talking about with the slavery things passed down, which is going to lead into what I'm going to say. I had a problem for the longest, like, hey, you know, give me this or let me see the card so I can go get this, that, and the third, because I didn't want to take her money. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Her money, which goes into what I wanted to say. When she said that I don't want to feel like, or I don't want to have to take care of a grown man. Mm-hmm. Now, which we hit on that conversation too before we even read this,
right?
A couple weeks ago. With that, I wonder how much that perpetuates into that too, because what I've learned from you, and again, it's something that maybe a whole lot of people did know, and maybe a whole lot of people don't know this. When you're married, it's not you, it's us. Yep. It's one, right? So what happens is it's not taking care of a grown man. Now, because something else just popped in my mind, I'm gonna show you something else too. It's not taking care of a grown man. It's holding things down so we can get back to where we want to be. Right. That ain't a taking care of nobody. That's a us thing. Right. And if the shoe was on the other foot, I wonder how much that perpetuates or plays in that too. She probably would expect him to do that. I think that's the whole argument for another day. But I'm seeing that from a different angle. I'm seeing that from a different angle. Okay, well, go. Because I'm thinking like some of that may very well be what's been passed down, right? Of the women hold this, you don't want to have to build a project and build a man up and blah, 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 blah. But some of that also may be from her idea about what stability is. So, for example, would she have said the same thing had he had a degree and he lost his job from like a university? Would she still feel like she's taking care of a grown man? Because I think some of that stems from women. I get what you're saying, because she probably would think that he would have been able to go get another job of equal
Right. And some of that, so sometimes it could be her thinking like, well, if he really wanted us to be financially stable, he would go and get an education. He wouldn't be so reluctant to go get an education because he know that's going to help us out. Because women will think like that. Or they'll say like, they'll fall back on this whole, oh, he's just being lazy, if they feel like the man is out of work, but he's not doing other things like he should be, right? So take, for example, a man who loses a job, but he's just sitting around all day, not picking up after himself, playing video games, doing blah, blah, blah. A woman is more apt to be like, I ain't gonna be taking care of no grown man. In that instance, if a man loses his job, right? But while he's off from work, he's putting things together, doing repairs on the house, cleaning the car, you know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that, because it is making her feel like he's trying to contribute in some way as opposed to not. Does that make sense?
It does and I wonder again. So everything, this is what I tell you when I told you earlier, I was confused, right? Mm-hmm. So now it makes sense and I'm gonna say this tentatively because of what how we led. Because now I don't know what comes from that and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. It makes sense from a woman's perspective, I would think. Mm-hmm. Because that may be how y'all feel, mm-hmm. But from our perspective, that's like, we expected to do that anyway. That ain't got nothing to do with us not that's contributing, but for us, that's something that we're gonna contribute if we working or not, for the most part.
No, I get that, but I'm saying, but what if the man that's not doing? I think what happens is that the woman, all of those things come to. Remember, I was saying earlier today, like, when I get in the mood, then every little thing starts bothering me. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying to me, it seems like all of those things come to the forefront when they feel like the man isn't contributing. So like when it's like, okay, yeah, he's out of work, but he's not even trying to help me with the kids. He ain't even trying to cook dinner. He just sitting around on his butt. That to me, I think women feel a little differently. Or if she's saying like, he's out of work, but he don't have to be. If he had taken an extra step to go to school, like I told him, he wouldn't have to worry about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, because sometimes I think it makes us feel like, are you putting your all into it? And if you love me like that, why would you not put your all into something that you know is going to eventually help us?
So what I wonder, like, that goes back also to what we said a couple 3-4 episodes ago about the premarital counseling and mm-hmm. and in the discussions in the early, even before premarital counseling, mm-hmm. the early discussions about mm-hmm. things, because Dr. Wortham White Phillips Brown, if education, if that is, let's say if you were that woman, right, mm-hmm. and you met me, and you don't have to know anything about the trucking industry. Mm-hmm. I'm making, because I got the little company going, I'm making whatever I'm making, and at the time I'm doing well, right, mm-hmm. financially. Mm-hmm. And then we start talking. Oh, so I graduated from blah blah blah. I got my mm-hmm. master's, my doctorate, and yes, I'm throwing that out there because you don't brag on yourself. You know, yeah, I got my master's, I got my doctorate. I did this in law school. Da 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 da. Okay, well, I went to college for a year and started driving truck, got kids, and been doing this all. I got my little business. Oh, so you ain't got no college education or degree in that? Nope. So I think at that point, that if that means that much to you, because we have, if you're that smart, you have to know that at any time that anything that can happen, mm-hmm. and you can lose your job. Mm-hmm. So then what is your fallback? Mm-hmm. If you think education is that important? Mm-hmm. So that could have been nipped at the bud. Don't. I mean,
that's something that could have been discussed, because to her. But I will say that I think a lot of people again get into a situation that they think they can handle. Like, okay, maybe it's not that important to me, or maybe they don't even think about how important it is to them at the time. Because if he's making good money, so like maybe you're not even thinking about it at that time, or maybe you think you can deal with it, or it may be a host of things that's a reason why you don't consider it. And then it starts bothering you.
Oh yeah, that's it.
I mean, and that I think that's one of the biggest things. Like there have been plenty of instances where people have. Think about it. We see it all the time in Hollywood movies, everything. And I know that's we're talking about movies and fiction, but no, life sometimes imitate art, and art sometimes imitate life. So, and this has happened in real life. You have all these stories about people. What's their whole issue with not wanting to marry somebody from the wrong side of the track, or not wanting to be with someone? And a lot of it is not just a money issue; it's a cultural issue. And so you'll see those people get together, and then they get embarrassed because they're like, "Oh, this person isn't using the correct language in front of people, my friends and my peers," just stuff like that. We even watched the show the other day where the girl was. I think she was embarrassed because like everybody was saying what their spouse was doing. Remember, they were like, this person was like, my spouse is blah, 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 my spouse is blah. And then when it got to her and her man, he was just like, oh yeah, I didn't go to school. You ever asked about what school everybody went to? And he was like, oh, I didn't go to college. Yeah, I decided I didn't want to go to college. And it made her feel a way. Like, and I don't think she thought that she would feel that way until it happened. And it made her feel a way that he was the only one that didn't have a college education, where all her friends, like the people that she was used to, all of them had a college education. And so those are real issues that people literally actually go through. The whole, am I using the right fork? Or you were using the right spoon at the right time and got my hand in my lap like that. Those are issues that people really deal with sometimes.
So now I'm not even gonna talk about that part of it. But yeah, that's because like I was thinking about the thing that we went to for Tori. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting at the table. By the way, my wife's actually a minister as well. Well, former minister. How do you say that? She's a licensed minister that's not practicing. So I have a pastor over here. I have, what was that lady that was hired that passed? That lady,
I'm not sure.
Whatever she was. Yeah. Then I have another pastor over here, and his wife, and then my wife. Now everybody over there probably can read a Bible back and forth. And that guy asked me, and it made me feel uncomfortable. Not to the point where I don't know.
Oh yeah, when he asked you that, I just ignored him.
Because it took me off guard. I was like, this, that, and the third, da da da. And I was like, yeah, I'm her husband. He's like, but what do you do in the church? Oh, okay. So I said that to make that parallel to what you just said. Mm-hmm. Now it didn't made me feel uncomfortable, but it didn't make me embarrassed. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And I don't know if that embarrassed you like it did that lady that you were talking.
No, but it didn't embarrass me at all. But look, there have been, I admittedly, and I'm not like a snobbish person or anything, but I have admittedly, like when I've had like employee events, right? And I'm like, okay, I gotta go to this corporate event. And the person I was dating at the time, I'm like, oh my God, like I hope when they get to this event, they don't talk like that they use proper English and that they know in front of these people. Like I've been there and I've dealt with that. And like, oh, are they gonna, I'm gonna be, it isn't, I don't know if I don't know if saying embarrassing me is a bad thing to say, but at the time, I don't know how else to explain it. It's almost like, I don't know why. I don't even know why you feel like that, but it's not just black people. It happens to white people too. White people get embarrassed when they have somebody from some other side of the tracks coming to some big, rich, fancy thing, and that person don't know how to act. But that's exactly how I felt. I was like, oh my God, like I got all these corporate people, and I don't know how they're going to act.
She better not ever take me to a corporate event.
And so I was kind of just like,
ninja?
No, but I was kind of like the whole time, like, just please don't say, just don't talk a whole lot. Like, don't talk.
That's how she'll be with me.
But so it's true. No, I didn't feel like that with him.
No,
I thought you was going to talk about the whole. Okay, so they were eating like chicken with a fork, and I wasn't about to do that. Like I know we were at a banquet, but that was chicken. Like we already can't eat the fried chicken anyway, right? We gonna eat the baked one. No, I'm not about to eat that with a fork. Okay, no, I'm not doing that. Like they had that fried chicken, they were trying to eat it with a fork, and they were struggling too. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, you're not.
I'm picking that up with my hands.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna tell you this in front of everybody that's ever gonna watch this video, right? I will act accordingly. Mm-hmm. But if you think that I'm gonna sit down, depending on what it is, chicken is one of them, ribs is another, fish is another, and try to act like, let me put the fork with the left hand and put my napkin right here and my other one in my lap and let me dab. No, I'm eating like the slaves. So I'm gonna tell you, hot sauce. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you.
Don't bring no hot sauce. No. What you about to bring up? The wine thing?
Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
Wait.
What was you gonna say?
When we was in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. Man, we went to the dang
my God.
restaurant. Oh,
This dude here.
Man,
I
listen.
just can't take him no.
we went to this restaurant. That bill that I posted is like $400, and she ordered a $95 glass of wine. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject. But what was that we ate?
Oh.
Was it chicken? That wasn't chicken. It was
something else.
lamb.
Lamb chops.
We ate some lamb chops. And it's one of these restaurants that you have to make a reservation. You got to dress up, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I ain't do it. I mean, excuse me, I didn't do it, but I wanted to bad. I swear I wanted to say, y'all got some hot sauce?
He's so ignorant.
I just, certain things that you know, the African culture. But
I was
anyway.
just like, I hope you didn't do it. Don't do that.
But in closing, it's like, again, I know we spent more time on that chapter. Maybe we indulge on that.
We'll do the
But
next time.
But it's just funny that it's funny that how those things can affect you, and I don't know if we as a people honestly understand how. I do and I don't. Again, I'm not the most educated physiological thinking. I don't even know. I use that in the appropriate context, but I'm not I'm not the most deep thinker. I'll say it that way. I'm not the best or the most intelligent deep thinker to even get to those levels, but I do see that it affects us. And I just wonder how many of us would be open to entertaining, to learning about that. Just how what we were talking about affects us.
Oh yeah.
And then, I want to say this too. I underline this because this is a good saying.
Mm-hmm.
There can be no peace, and this was the chapter of becoming mature,
Mm-hmm.
without understanding.
Oh yes.
That is
That's so real.
I think I want to get that on a shirt actually,
Yeah.
because that is a deep saying. There can be no peace without understanding. And you can put that in the context of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You can put that in the context of racism.
Mm-hmm.
You can put that in the context of just about anything.
Mm-hmm. Because there's no understanding. You glossing over stuff. It's superficial.
So that's just something for people to think about.
Yeah.
There can be no peace without understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with a saying. What did I tell them people when I was doing that interview in Iowa?
Mm-hmm.
Without conversation, also it can't be understanding.
Yeah.
And I've never heard nobody say that. If somebody said it before me, I'm pretty sure somebody has. But I just said it in an interview trying to be impressive. But the truth to that is just that truth. Without a conversation, there could be no understanding. With conversation comes understanding.
Mm-hmm.
With understanding comes peace.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to do better.
We do.
And if anybody ever watched this, because it's on my page, let me tell y'all something. Y'all can call me Uncle Tom's, Uncle Rufus's, and everything else in the world. I am African American, black, a ninja, just like you. I just got discriminated and profiled just last week doing a lift. Okay? We have to stop as a people being so offended because of another person's opinion or how another person's viewpoints or how they perceive something. To me, that's one of the things that holds us back. I made a statement on my page. Imagine if Dr. King and Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if Dr. King and Malcolm X had got all the way on the same page.
All right. So
it's not about, we can have a difference of opinions.
Mm-hmm.
We can perceive something differently. But how do we get to the common destination of understanding to move the goalposts forward?
Right.
That's all I gotta say. 'Cause I'm
Right.
home.
Yeah, we got a family meeting. Like right now,
We do?
kids getting ready to kill us. Yeah. You haven't been looking at your text?
No,
Babe, we have a family meeting.
no, I'm not doing that.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not doing that.
Yes, you are.
I'm not.
All right.
We having a family. We having a family call right now live on. I'm not doing no family meeting.
Yes, sure.
It is 10 o'clock.
Give me a kiss.
No.
It's not 10 o'clock. Give me a kiss. We would have been done if you hadn't been running your mouth about you being Uncle Tom and Rufus and all stuff. Give me a kiss. Bye-bye.
Nope, I gotta kiss you better than that.
Hmm?
All right.
All right.
Anyway,
It's not better. I haven't even on my lips.
you the one who gave me your rusty ass.
All
I
right.
thought you had stopped it. You